A millionaire spots a homeless woman clutching her baby tightly under the pouring rain. In a split second, he hands her the keys to his mansion, a decision even he himself cannot explain. But when he returns, what he sees leaves him completely frozen. What happens next will keep you on the edge of your seat. And if you love captivating stories like this, make sure to subscribe. Many more meaningful stories are waiting for you. Now let's get back to the story. Rain poured down over Chicago, Illinois, turning the bustling streets into a sea of umbrellas and shimmering reflections on the drenched asphalt. Raindrops pounded against Sebastian Cole's windshield like tiny water explosions, but he barely noticed the storm. Focused, he mentally reviewed every detail of his upcoming presentation. As the CEO of one of the city's largest financial firms, every move he made was calculated to perfection. Emotions were a luxury reserved for moments outside the corporate world, where pragmatism ruled supreme. Yet something was about to disrupt his relentless rhythm that day. Stopped at a red light, Sebastian noticed something that didn't belong in the cityscape. On the corner of the sidewalk, a young woman cradling a baby stood huddled under the cold autumn rain, desperately trying to shield the child with her own body. Her thin, trembling arms wrapped around the baby, struggling to keep her warm. She wore an old soaked coat, her posture exhausted yet fiercely protective. Through the rearview mirror, Sebastian watched her, a strange, unsettling sensation stirring within him, an emotion he had long trained himself not to let in. His gaze was drawn to her face. Even from a distance, he could see the exhaustion mixed with determination in her expression. She held a small cardboard sign with uneven letters that read, "Please help. We need food and shelter." For a fleeting moment, Sebastian's mind drifted back to his own childhood, the cold streets, the nights of scarcity before he built his empire. But he quickly pushed the thought aside, focusing instead on the traffic light that was about to turn green. And yet, just before his car moved, something happened. A wave of irresistible empathy, something he had learned to suppress over the years, rushed through him. He rolled down his window, momentarily speechless. The young woman hesitated, but stepped closer, and he noticed she could barely hold the baby anymore. The rain pounded harder, the heavy droplets streaming down her face, blending with silent tears. Almost instinctively, Sebastian gestured for her to come closer. And then, in a split-second decision that even shocked himself, he opened the car door. "Get in." His voice was firm but gentle. The woman hesitated, clearly suspicious, but the need to protect her child won out. She carefully climbed into the back seat, holding her daughter close. Sebastian quickly pulled away from the curb, adjusting the heater. The chill in the air was undeniable, and he noticed how her body trembled, though she tried to hide it. Their eyes met briefly in the rearview mirror. He saw deep exhaustion etched into her features. Yet despite everything, there was a quiet dignity about her, a resilient pride that kept her from asking for more than necessary. Sebastian was intrigued, and for reasons he couldn't quite explain, he decided not to drive to O'Hare International Airport as planned. Instead, he turned toward his Lake Forest estate, a property that rarely held any trace of human warmth. "What's your name?" he asked, his tone deliberately softer, trying not to startle her. "Clara," she replied faintly. "And this is Lily." She glanced at her daughter, offering a faint but protective smile. Sebastian nodded, not asking anything more. The silence between them was almost comfortable despite the unusual situation. The warmth inside the car, the sense of momentary safety, and the sheer unreality of this unexpected kindness felt surreal to Clara. She sat quietly processing the fact that at least for one night she and Lily had shelter. Sebastian, meanwhile, felt something unfamiliar stirring within him. Something about Clara had reached a part of him he thought he had long buried. But he ignored the discomfort, focusing instead on the practical decision he had just made. A few minutes later, the car pulled up to his vast Lake Forest estate. The modern mansion, with its floor-to-ceiling windows and immaculately kept gardens, stood imposing and unfamiliar to Clara. She stared silent, unable to comprehend what had just happened. She stood in silence, unsure of what would happen next, as Sebastian stepped out of the car, walked around, and opened the door to help her out. "You can stay here until I get back," he said, handing her a silver key. Still unable to process his own decision, Clara took the key with trembling hands, barely able to believe what had just happened. She was used to being ignored, dismissed, and rejected, never expecting anyone to show such sudden kindness, especially not from someone like Sebastian, a man whose cold, detached demeanor made it seem like he existed in a completely different world from those struggling to survive on the streets. "Sir, I don't know how to thank you," she stammered, her voice choked with emotion and exhaustion. "No need to thank me," he replied, avoiding her gaze, uncomfortable with this rare display of humanity. "Just take care of her. And yourself. I'll be back tomorrow." Without waiting for more words, Sebastian turned back toward his car and drove off without looking back. He knew he had a flight to catch and a meeting that could determine the future of Cole Financial Group. But as he headed toward O'Hare International Airport, an unsettling feeling lingered in his chest. He knew Clara wasn't just another homeless person he had helped. Something about her stirred something deep inside him, though he was reluctant to admit why. Meanwhile, Clara stepped into the Cole estate in Lake Forest, still in shock. The warmth of the house wrapped around her, and she took a deep breath, inhaling the soft, unfamiliar scent in the air. The luxury surrounding her felt unreal, like she had stepped into a different world. With every step, the mansion felt even more imposing. Holding Lily close, she slowly walked into the spacious living room, where elegant furniture, priceless artwork, and a massive crystal chandelier made everything seem like a mirage. For Clara, this was an unexpected, almost miraculous refuge, a place where she could finally rest, even if just for one night. As night fell, Clara found a cozy bedroom where she could lay Lily down on a soft bed, something she had never been able to provide for her daughter before. Lily's eyes lit up at the sight of the luxurious room, and Clara couldn't hold back a quiet, emotional smile. In that moment, she felt a rare kind of happiness, just knowing that her daughter was safe. Even though she had no idea what the future held tonight, at least for now, they had shelter. Outside, the storm continued to rage, but for the first time in months, Clara allowed herself to feel a moment of relief. Sebastian's house was an improbable shelter, but for now it was all she had and all she needed. As she closed the door behind her, she felt years of uncertainty and suffering begin to lift from her shoulders, as if she had left them outside. The pristine white walls, luxurious furniture, and towering windows overlooking the rain-lit garden made this place feel almost surreal. In silence, as if afraid to wake from a dream, Clara let her gaze wander across the wide room, almost unable to believe what she was seeing. In her arms, Lily slept soundly, unaware of where she was, but nestled in her mother's embrace as if for the first time she felt truly safe. Clara knew that this chance, no matter how improbable it seemed, was a small miracle for someone like her, for someone who had lived without a permanent address or stable shelter. Knowing she could sleep without fear tonight was a luxury she had never dared to dream of. Looking around, her eyes landed on an open kitchen fully equipped with gleaming, state-of-the-art appliances. A pang of hesitation hit her, but hunger quickly overpowered any second thoughts. Since losing her home, the chance for a proper meal had been rare, and cooking with fresh ingredients even rarer. Without thinking too much, she gently laid Lily down on the couch, making sure she was still sound asleep, and walked into the kitchen. The cabinets were impeccably organized, revealing shelves stocked with food, the kind she hadn't seen in a long time. Opening the fridge, her fingers trembled with anticipation as she saw fresh vegetables, fruit, and dairy products all neatly arranged under the soft glow of the refrigerator light. She reached for a few ingredients, still hesitant, as if every movement might shatter the magic of the moment. She chose eggs, some vegetables, and a slice of homemade bread. And for the first time in what felt like forever, she felt a simple joy as she began to prepare a meal. As she stirred the eggs in the skillet, Clara couldn't contain the emotions swelling in her chest. For most people, cooking was routine, but for her, it meant stability, security, and above all, a sense of control that had long been missing. When the soft, familiar scent of cooked eggs filled the kitchen, a quiet smile appeared on her face. It was a feeling she had long forgotten. She cut small pieces for Lily, already imagining her daughter's reaction to a meal prepared with love and care. In just a few minutes, a simple but nourishing meal was ready. Clara sat at the table, her heart warm, her gaze reflecting relief and gratitude. Lily woke up to the smell of food, and Clara lifted her with a tenderness that transcended hunger and exhaustion. The little girl smiled, her eyes shining with the innocence of someone unaware of life's hardships. Clara patiently fed her, laughing softly at Lily's delighted expression with each bite. For many, this moment would have been ordinary, but for Clara, it felt like a stolen piece of normalcy from the past. As they ate, Clara allowed herself to relax for the first time in months. Every bite brought strength not just to her body, but to her soul. This simple meal became a banquet, a moment of peace amidst the storm that had been her life. After dinner, Clara turned to Lily, who was playing with a spoon, as if it were the most precious toy in the world. She watched her daughter with a serene gaze, savoring this rare moment of calm. Clara got up quietly, moving through the house, searching for a place to bathe Lily, and maybe herself, too. Stepping into the master bathroom, she stopped, stunned by the sheer luxury of the space. White marble walls, heated floors, and a bathtub large enough for two gleamed under the soft, warm lights. This was a place she never imagined she would set foot in, a symbol of a world she didn't belong to. But standing there, faced with the chance to give her daughter a small moment of comfort, Clara took a deep breath and decided that for at least one night, she would embrace this peace. She filled the tub with warm water, carefully undressed Lily, and gently lowered her into the soothing bath. She watched as her daughter's face lit up in surprise, her delightful giggles echoing through the bathroom as she splashed her tiny hands and feet. Clara softly washed Lily's little fingers and face, then wrapped her in a plush robe she found in the closet. After making sure her daughter was warm and cozy, she finally allowed herself a rare moment of relaxation. She slid into the bath, letting the warm water wash over her skin, carrying away the traces of time and the painful memories of cold, sleepless nights. Closing her eyes, she felt herself drifting back to a time when she had a home and a future that felt certain. But life, with its unpredictable turns, had pushed her far from that path, forcing her to learn that fate wasn't always fair. As she stepped out of the bath, Clara felt reborn, as if a part of her pain had been left behind, washed away with the water. She wrapped herself in a soft robe, feeling as though she were embraced by a gentle dream. On the bed, Lily was already drifting off, curled up among the soft pillows, a sight so rare and precious that Clara let out a quiet sigh of relief. She lay down beside her daughter, pulling her close, her mind floating between gratitude and hope. With Lily nestled in her arms, the exhaustion of the past months finally overtook her, lulling her into a deep, peaceful sleep. Clara closed her eyes, breathing in the gentle scent of clean sheets, feeling the warmth of the room shielding her from the storm outside. She knew that this night was a gift, and she had no idea what tomorrow would bring. But for now, she chose to set aside her fears and anxieties. For the first time in a long time, Clara allowed herself to fall asleep without worry. It was a strange but welcome peace wrapping around her completely. The shadows of her past seemed to dissolve, if only for a moment, as she took a deep breath and surrendered to the comforting darkness of sleep. Throughout the night, fragments of her old life surfaced in her dreams. There was a time when she was young and full of ambition, when nothing seemed impossible. She remembered the days when she was a dedicated medical student, determined to make a difference to build a future. But those dreams had been ripped away, forcing her to learn how to survive instead. Clara shifted in bed, but as she held her daughter tighter, the warmth of the present surrounded her, and for the first time in a very long time she didn't have nightmares. Instead, she dreamed of a life where she could give Lily a childhood free from hardship. As the first rays of sunlight crept into the room, Clara slowly woke up, still caught between sleep and reality. The room was silent, except for the soft sound of Lily's breathing beside her. She looked at her daughter's peaceful face and allowed herself a small smile. Last night had been more than just sleep, it was proof that hope still existed. Clara sat up, taking a deep breath, determined to do whatever it took to hold on to this peace for herself and for her daughter. As the morning light filled the room, her eyes slowly opened, and the reality around her solidified. The soft bed she had rested on, the warm blanket that had embraced her, and the serene face of Lily beside her reminded her that even if just for a moment, she had found a safe haven. But as her gaze wandered across the elegant surroundings, her thoughts began to drift back. And painfully, her past returned like a raging river of memories. Clara never imagined she would one day be homeless. Years ago, she had been a young woman full of dreams and resilience. Those dreams had seemed so close, almost tangible. She had worked tirelessly to get accepted into one of Chicago's top medical schools, overcoming every challenge to become the first in her family to earn a college degree. Her professors had recognized her as a talented student, someone whose passion for medicine was evident in her dedication to her studies and her sincere desire to help others. Her mother used to say that even as a child, Clara was always taking care of injured animals in the neighborhood, always gentle, always trying to ease suffering. Everything had seemed to be in place until the day she lost her parents in a tragic accident. Clara remembered the late-night phone call, the hollow feeling when she heard the news, and the despair of realizing that the life she knew was gone forever. The world she had once known collapsed in seconds. Losing her parents had taken more than just her family. It had stripped away the only emotional anchor she had, the only thing that kept her steady. The grief consumed her, and the pain that had once been quiet and internal became an unbearable weight that drained her spirit. Along with her parents' deaths, she also lost the financial stability that had allowed her to study without worry. The bills piled up, and the exhausting pace of medical school, combined with the job she had taken to support herself, began to take its toll. She spent sleepless nights torn between academic obligations and rising hardships, and it became clear her energy was dwindling. It was during this vulnerable time that she met Derek Slade. He was charming and seemed to understand her in ways no one else did. Derek was gentle, engaging, and had a way of making her believe that she could get through this phase, that perhaps despite everything, she could still smile again. Derek had become her safe place during her darkest days, the person who made her believe she could get through this phase, that maybe, just maybe, she could smile again, truly smile. Clara stepped into the relationship, trusting that she had found support, maybe even a love that would last forever. She let him in completely, sharing her fears, dreams, and the deepest wounds she had kept hidden. But over time, Derek revealed a side of himself she never could have imagined. The sweet, caring man she had fallen for became possessive and controlling. At first it was subtle, but soon The affectionate gestures turned into cruel words and unreasonable demands. Clara, who had once found security in his arms, now felt trapped in a web of control and manipulation. And by the time she realized the truth, it was too late. She had already handed him complete control over her life. Quietly, Derek began draining her savings, the money she had put away for emergencies. At first, it was small amounts, barely noticeable. But by the time Clara discovered it, it was already too late. Everything she had left was gone. One evening when Clara finally confronted him, Derek didn't even bother to hide his selfishness and cruelty anymore. With a cold, indifferent smirk, he laughed at her illusions, dismissing the feelings he had once pretended to cherish. "I never wanted anything but your money. Watching you depend on me was the real fun." And then, as if she meant nothing to him, he left. No regret, no guilt, nothing. That night, Clara was left alone, broke, abandoned, and carrying a child she never even had the chance to plan for. With no financial or emotional support, and now pregnant, she couldn't continue medical school. She tried to find work, tried to start over, but every attempt was met with judgment, rejection, and the harsh reality. She couldn't even afford to take care of herself. Chicago, once the city of her dreams, had now become her battleground. As she gently caressed Lily's tiny face, Clara's tear-filled eyes reflected both the pain and the strength that had kept her going. Her daughter was the only treasure she had left. For Lily, Clara had endured freezing nights, unbearable exhaustion, and constant insecurity. Every night on the streets, every danger she faced, was a burden she carried in silence just to protect her child. She had never let despair show in her eyes when looking at Lily. She always tried to smile, hiding the tears and growing fear inside her. It was her silent promise that her daughter would never bear the same suffering she had. And now, in the warmth of Cole Estate, sheltered and safe, a deep gratitude began to rise within her. The memories of everything she had endured only made Sebastian's kindness feel even more profound. He knew nothing about her past, yet he had offered his help anyway, not just a helping hand but a lifeline, a chance to breathe before facing the struggles of life again. Clara wondered how she could ever thank him, but she found no words that felt enough. How could she possibly express such gratitude? It wasn't just physical protection he had given her. It was a moment of peace amidst years of suffering. A single night where she and her daughter could sleep without fear. Clara closed her eyes for a moment, searching for a way to repay him. Her mind filled with memories of her first night at college, of happy days with her parents, of the love she once felt before life took a turn she never expected. And in that instant, she made a decision. She wouldn't let this act of kindness fade away. Sebastian had given her something money couldn't buy, proof that kindness still existed, and she was determined to honor that somehow. At that moment, Clara decided she would start over. No matter how hard it would be, she had already survived the worst. And now, with Lily in her arms and a renewed strength in her heart, she knew she had to turn gratitude into action. She knew Sebastian might never fully understand the depth of her thankfulness, but she promised herself she would do everything possible to show him that his gesture was more than just help. He had given her a night of peace, and that peace gave her the strength to keep fighting. Meanwhile, Sebastian returned to Cole Estate earlier than expected. His meeting had been postponed at the last minute, but as he stepped into his house, something felt different. There was warmth in the air. He stopped in the hallway, and then he heard it. A soft, playful giggle, a child's laughter. Sebastian froze. His house had never sounded like this before. Curious, he followed the sound. and when he turned the corner, he saw something he never expected. Through the slightly open door of the guest room, a scene unfolded before him. The room, bathed in the soft afternoon light, was filled with a warmth and peace he had never seen in his own home. Clara sat on the floor playing with Lily, making a small stuffed bear dance from side to side. The little girl reached for it, giggling each time Clara pulled it just out of reach. Clara's expression glowed with pure affection and joy. A kind of happiness Sebastian had rarely witnessed in his own life. For a few moments he just stood there, watching, silently, completely captivated by the simplicity of it all, by the warmth, by the genuine smiles, by the way his house, his world felt different with them in it. Something about Clara and Lily had changed this place. They had filled it with a presence he hadn't realized was missing. And without noticing, a small smile crept onto his face. For the first time, Sebastian felt it. Something he had never known he needed. Clara suddenly sensed his presence. She turned around slightly startled and a bit flustered. Quickly, she set the stuffed bear down and instinctively held Lily close while the little girl continued giggling, completely unaware of Sebastian's presence. For a brief moment, Clara hesitated, as if she was suddenly reminded that this was not her home, that, maybe for a moment, she had allowed herself to feel too comfortable in a place she didn't belong. "No need to stop on my account," Sebastian said, his voice unexpectedly gentle, almost encouraging. Clara relaxed slightly, though her eyes still carried a mix of surprise and gratitude, something Sebastian couldn't ignore. He realized then that something as simple as offering shelter could mean so much more than he had ever imagined. There was a quiet sincerity in her expression, and Sebastian could see. The safety and comfort this house provided meant more to her than he had ever anticipated. I didn't expect you to be back so soon," Clara said, her voice slightly unsteady, but still carrying her quiet dignity. Sebastian stepped closer, his eyes curious as he looked at Lily. The little girl gazed up at him with wide, innocent eyes, then reached out her tiny hand toward him. Without thinking, Sebastian extended his own hand, letting her wrap her fingers around his. Her grip was soft, warm, trusting. And for reasons he couldn't explain, Sebastian found himself smiling. The simple gesture held a kind of sweetness and purity that caught him completely off guard. "She's amazing," Sebastian murmured, glancing at Clara. She smiled, her eyes filled with pride and deep emotion. "She really is," Clara whispered, holding Lily a little closer. "And I don't know how to thank you. Having a safe night, a roof over our heads after so long. It feels like a dream." Sebastian felt the weight of her words, and for the first time he fully understood how much that single night had meant to her. Every word she spoke stirred something inside him, a growing sense of responsibility, something he couldn't ignore. Clara was no longer just a stranger he had helped. She and Lily had filled an invisible void in his life. This simple scene. The laughter, the genuine smiles, somehow, it had brought a new energy into his house, and, inexplicably, into his heart. "Clara," Sebastian said, his voice low but sincere, "you don't need to thank me. Honestly, I think I needed this just as much as you did." Clara looked at him, her surprise and emotion unmistakable. It was hard to believe that a man like Sebastian Cole, powerful in control with everything at his fingertips, would admit that he needed something too, especially her and her daughter. But standing before her, he looked more human than ever, almost vulnerable, as if this confession was his way of surrendering to his own emotions. And suddenly Clara realized he carried a silent loneliness too. "Even so, I'm still grateful," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "This place, This chance. It means more than I can put into words. After everything, it's more than I ever dared to hope for. Holding Lily close, Clara felt a deep sense of relief wash over her. Sebastian's offer, letting her stay as long as she needed, was more than she ever expected. Just knowing her daughter had a safe place to sleep was already a gift beyond anything she could have imagined. The hardships, the cold, lonely nights, the constant weight of uncertainty. They all felt lighter now, as if just being under this roof was enough to give her strength again. Sebastian watched her closely and felt something shift inside him. He realized that Clara wasn't just delicate. She carried a quiet pride and unshakable determination. And as he watched her cradle Lily with unwavering love and protection, he wondered, how could someone who had endured so much pain still be this gentle? Before leaving, Sebastian leaned down and gently brushed his fingers over Lily's face. The little girl, with her curious eyes, giggled again, reaching out to grasp his finger like a toy. Sebastian felt a surprising tenderness, and in that moment, something changed. He realized that somehow that touch, that laughter, had ignited something deep inside him. Something he couldn't explain, but knew. It felt right. It felt whole. Clara watched as Sebastian walked away, feeling a wave of unexpected peace wash over her. His kindness wasn't just about offering shelter. It was something deeper. A silent acceptance. A lifeline. For both of them. Something invisible yet powerful seemed to have connected them. She didn't know if he felt it too, but this experience, this moment of connection, would never be forgotten. Unannounced, Vanessa King stepped into Cole Estate, her stride purposeful, her gaze sharp. Her driver had dropped her off at the grand entrance, and she fully expected to find Sebastian ready to welcome her as he always had before Clara and Lily. Vanessa was the heiress of a corporate empire rivaling Sebastian's, and their tumultuous relationship had always been defined by competition and intense passion. She was ambitious, proud, and unwavering in her belief that she was important to Sebastian. So when she walked in without warning, she didn't bother to announce herself. She assumed, as always, that he would be pleased to see her. She strolled through the grand living room, taking in the familiar luxury of Cole Estate. Within a few steps, she found Sebastian in his study, absorbed in his documents. He greeted her with measured surprise, but couldn't quite hide a trace of discomfort. The distance between them had grown in recent months, and Vanessa knew something had changed. "Sebastian," she said, flashing a confident smile as her sharp gaze met his. "I missed you, so I decided to drop by unannounced." Sebastian smiled, but his gaze drifted toward the hallway, as if something else was pulling his attention. Vanessa noticed the shift immediately. She knew Sebastian as a man completely devoted to his work, always rational, cautious in personal relationships, and fiercely protective of his private life. Yet there was something new, something different in his expression, something she couldn't quite figure out. As they talked, Vanessa became aware of a strange presence in Cole Estate. From somewhere upstairs, she heard a soft, childlike sound echoing down the hall. Her brows furrowed as she tried to understand what it meant. Without wasting a second, Vanessa abruptly cut off the conversation and strode purposefully toward the sound. Sebastian hesitated for a brief moment, but chose not to stop her. A part of him knew Vanessa would eventually find out about Clara and Lily, and now he no longer felt the need to hide it. Turning the corner, Vanessa saw Clara holding Lily in her arms. The initial shock on her face quickly turned to suspicion and irritation. She studied Clara from head to toe, scrutinizing every detail, from her simple clothes to the protective way she held her daughter. Lily, curious about the stranger, gazed at Vanessa with innocent eyes. But Clara immediately sensed the hostility hidden beneath Vanessa's stare. And you are, Vanessa's voice cut through the air, her lips curling into a smug, sarcastic smile. Clara hesitated for just a second, then responded calmly, politely, ignoring the growing discomfort. Vanessa's presence stirred inside her. I'm Clara, and this is my daughter Lily. Vanessa barely contained a scoff, her eyes filled with disdain and judgment as they swept over Clara. It didn't take long for her to put the pieces together. Sebastian must have offered this woman a place to stay, and though she didn't want to admit it, a bitter jealousy began to creep into her chest. To Vanessa, the idea that Sebastian, always so guarded, so reserved, had allowed a complete stranger into his home was unacceptable, especially someone like her, a woman she deemed insignificant, unworthy. After a tense pause, Vanessa turned sharply and walked straight back to Sebastian's office. Her expression was completely different now, cold, suspicious, possessive. So, the young woman I just met upstairs, she began, her voice laced with sarcasm, accusation. She's your latest guest. Sebastian remained calm, but he couldn't deny the irritation creeping into his chest. He knew that explaining Clara's presence to a woman consumed by jealousy wouldn't be easy. The way Vanessa eyed him made it painfully obvious she had already assumed the worst. Clara and her daughter are going through a difficult time. I simply offered them some help, Sebastian replied, keeping his tone neutral. But Vanessa had already let her jealousy take over. Her eyes narrowed, her mind racing with territorial, impulsive thoughts. She couldn't believe that Sebastian, of all people so careful, so private, had opened his home to a stranger. Anger and resentment rose inside her like a slow burning fire, and she decided right then and there she would do everything in her power to get Clara out of the picture. Don't you think this is a little risky, Sebastian? Vanessa's voice was dripping with suggestion. You let a woman you barely know into your house. She could be taking advantage of your kindness. Sebastian remained silent for a moment. But the seed of doubt Vanessa had planted started to take root in his mind. He knew Clara was honest, yet his entire life, security and reputation had always been his top priorities, and Vanessa's sharp words made him wonder. Had he been too impulsive? Seeing Sebastian begin to hesitate, Vanessa pressed further. Think about it, Sebastian. A stranger, with a child, an easy situation to manipulate. How do you know she's trustworthy? Sebastian felt the weight of her words. A part of him refused to doubt Clara, but another part of him couldn't ignore the consequences Vanessa was hinting at. Determined to get answers, he let out a slow sigh, then headed upstairs to the room where Clara and Lily were staying. The moment he stepped inside, his expression tense, Clara felt a chill run down her spine. Something had changed. She could see the doubt in his eyes, and her heart pounded in her chest. Was he questioning her? Sebastian took a step closer, his eyes serious. Clara had never seen him look at her like this before, and it threw her off balance. Clara, I need to understand more about your story. Is there something you're not telling me? Clara froze, caught completely off guard. The way he phrased it, the words he chose, felt like an accusation, a silent judgment, and it stung more than she expected. She took a shaky breath, gathering the courage to answer, but the look in his eyes and the memory of Vanessa's condescending stare made her feel humiliated. I've already told you what's important. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but there was a quiet strength in it. I never wanted to take advantage of anything. Sebastian watched her every reaction. A part of him still refused to believe she wasn't telling the truth, but the doubt Vanessa had planted refused to leave his mind. Clara saw the conflict in Sebastian's face, and for the first time she realized that this shelter, this place that meant everything to her and Lily, might have been nothing more than a fragile illusion. She had no way to prove her sincerity, and the moment she saw doubt flicker in Sebastian's eyes, it cut deeper than she expected. A sharp pain, one that clawed at her pride. Feeling humiliated and defeated, she held Lily tighter. Without another word, she made her decision. She would not stay where she was not truly accepted. "I think I understand now." Her voice was calm, but beneath it lay an unshakable pain. "Thank you for your help, Sebastian. But I think Lily and I have stayed long enough." Clutching Lily in her arms, she turned and walked away without looking back. In the days that followed, Sebastian felt lost. A persistent, unnerving restlessness settled over him. Cole Estate, his sanctuary of solitude, now felt strangely empty and eerily silent. He wandered through the long hallways, but every corner of the house reminded him of Clara's quiet warmth and Lily's innocent laughter. Every sound, every echo of his own footsteps brought back memories of the life that had briefly existed within these walls. He could still hear Lily's giggles, still see Clara's soft smile as she cared for her daughter. They had changed this house, made it feel like more than just walls and furniture. And now, without them, he finally understood just how empty it truly was. Sitting at his desk, he tried to focus on the files before him, but every page blurred into memories of Clara and Lily. He remembered Clara's gratitude when he first gave her shelter, the way her eyes held quiet relief, the way Lily's laughter had filled the halls, the way Clara's unwavering love for her daughter radiated in every action. And the more he thought about it, the more Sebastian questioned himself. His own reaction that night, the way he had allowed Vanessa's words to take root in his mind, the way he had looked at Clara with doubt, when all she had ever shown was gratitude and quiet resilience. He couldn't erase the image of Clara's face the moment she had realized he no longer trusted her. Her silence, her defeat, the way she left without fighting to explain herself. Not because she was guilty, but because she already knew he wouldn't believe her. That thought haunted him, because Clara had never tried to manipulate him. She had never asked for anything. She had only needed a safe place for her daughter, and he had betrayed that trust. Now every word he had spoken that night felt cruel, unforgivable. She had never deserved to be doubted, and he had been foolish enough to let Vanessa poison his mind. For the first time in his life, Sebastian Cole felt ashamed. After days of unrelenting guilt, Sebastian made an inevitable decision. He needed the truth, not Vanessa's twisted assumptions, not his own flawed judgment. He hired a private investigator to uncover Clara's past. If he had let Vanessa cloud his judgment before, now he needed to clear it. He needed to truly know who was Clara. The waiting felt endless. But even as he tried to distract himself with work, memories of Clara and Lily refused to fade. He remembered her gratitude, the way his home had changed with their presence, the way his heart had changed too. And as the days stretched on, the feeling of loss only grew stronger. How could he have doubted her? When the investigator's report finally arrived, Sebastian tore it open immediately, his hands gripping the pages tighter than he realized. And then he read, and what he discovered shattered him. Clara had once been a promising student, dedicated, hardworking, until the tragedy that changed everything. The night she lost both her parents. From that moment, her life became a fight for survival. She had endured abandonment, betrayal, and heartbreak. She had placed her trust in the wrong man, only to be left with nothing but a child she had to protect alone. Yet despite everything she had lost, she had never lost her dignity. She had never given up. Sebastian felt like he'd been punched in the gut. Clara was never a liar. She was never a con artist. She had never wanted anything from him except a safe place for her daughter. And he had failed her. Regret hit him like a tidal wave. He had been selfish. He had been blind. He had been unfair. For so long, pride had ruled his life. But now it was pride that had cost him something he couldn't afford to lose. As he continued reading, one thing became painfully clear. Vanessa had never been and would never be the woman he truly needed. Her coldness, her manipulation, the way she had twisted the situation for her own gain. It disgusted him. The love he thought he had for Vanessa was never real. It had been built on image, convenience, control. And now, standing at the wreckage of his own mistakes, Sebastian knew only one thing mattered now. He had to find Clara, and he had to fix what he broke, not just with an apology, but with something more. He needed Clara to know the truth, that her kindness had changed him, that the warmth and sincerity she had brought into his life were now something he couldn't live without. Sebastian was determined to find them no matter what it took. He told the investigator to track down Clara's location because he needed a chance to make things right. That night, he couldn't sleep. His heart pounded with a deep fear that if he didn't act now, he might lose the chance to fix his mistake forever. In his mind, he replayed every moment they had shared. Clara's soft smiles, the way she looked at him with gratitude and quiet respect, the way Lily's tiny fingers curled around his. The memories became fuel, a force pushing him forward, refusing to let him give up without a fight. By morning, the investigator sent him an address. Knowing where she was brought him a wave of relief, but also a new kind of fear. How would she react when she saw him? Would she accept his apology or tell him to stay out of her life forever? One thing he knew for sure, he was willing to do whatever it took to show her that she meant more to him than anything he had ever known. That his regret was real, and that he wanted them back in his life. As he drove toward her address, a mix of anxiety and hope stirred inside him. He knew that finding her wasn't just about fixing a mistake. It was the chance to open a door to a life he had never planned, but now realized was the life he truly needed. When he arrived, he stood in front of the door, took a deep breath and felt the weight of every decision that had led him here. He was ready to hear her rejection, ready to accept that she might never forgive him. But he also knew he couldn't let fear stop him. Clara and Lily were the most important thing in his life now, and he had to fight for them. Sebastian knocked. Within seconds, the door opened. Clara stood there, her expression filled with surprise and caution. In that moment, Sebastian felt small, but he took a deep breath and spoke. "Clara, please." His voice was barely above a whisper, thick with emotion. "I know I'm probably the last person you want to see right now, but please give me a chance. I made a terrible mistake. I let doubt and insecurity cloud my judgment, and I treated you unfairly." He paused, inhaled shakily, then met her gaze. "Since you and Lily left, I realized how much you both mean to me. The house, my life. Everything feels empty without you." Clara stayed silent, but Sebastian saw it, the battle in her eyes. She didn't respond right away, but he could feel that his words were reaching her, and that was enough for him to keep going. "Clara, you gave me a new perspective. You showed me what truly matters. I want you to know I'm not just here to apologize. I'm here to ask you to come back home with me. I want to give you and Lily the home you deserve, a place where you can be happy and safe. I want you to stay not as guests, but as a part of my life, or rather, as a part of our life." Clara took a deep breath, her hands slightly trembling. For so long she had been searching for a refuge, a place where she could finally feel at peace. Sebastian's offer was tempting, but her heart still bore the scars of abandonment and betrayal. She turned away, looking at Lily, who was playing nearby. She thought of everything she had endured, the cold, lonely nights on the streets, the fear, the exhaustion, but also the tiny moments of hope that had kept her going. And now, standing in front of Sebastian, she felt like life was giving her a second chance. His words, honest and full of regret, sank deep into her heart. She looked at Lily and realized maybe this was the opportunity to give her daughter something she never had. A real home. A place where love and safety could finally exist. When Clara turned back to Sebastian, she saw nothing but sincerity in his eyes. And suddenly, something inside her softened. She knew forgiving him and accepting his offer wasn't just an emotional decision. It was a chance to start over. To begin a new chapter she had never dared to dream of. Lily, sensing the weight of the moment, slowly walked up to Sebastian. Her big, innocent eyes looked up at him with quiet curiosity. Then, in the purest, most natural gesture, she stretched out her little arms toward him. "Uncle Alex, are you coming with us?" She asked, her voice soft, filled with expectation. Sebastian's heart stopped. His chest tightened. And for the first time in his life, he felt like he had everything to lose. Slowly, he knelt to her level, opened his arms, and pulled her close. His voice was shaky, thick with emotion. "Yes, my little one, I'm coming with you. Forever." Clara watched the moment unfold and felt a knot inside her unravel. It seemed that the purity of a young girl had given her the courage to start over, to open her heart once again. She smiled quietly, and when Sebastian looked up, he saw her eyes filled with warmth and a silent understanding. "I accept, Sebastian." Her voice was full of emotion, yet firm. "But on one condition, that what we build must be real. No more fear or doubt." He nodded, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I promise, Clara. I swear that we will build this together, and nothing, no one will take it away from us." As he pulled her into his arms, Sebastian felt a certainty settle within him. This was the beginning of a new chapter in his life. In that moment, he understood that love and trust between them had grown stronger than any fear or uncertainty. When they finally returned to the Cole estate in Lake Forest, the once cold and solemn space felt completely transformed. Lily's laughter echoed through every corner, and Clara's gaze now shone with peace and radiance, reflecting the very serenity and happiness Sebastian had long searched for. Vanessa, upon hearing of their reconciliation, had to face the bitter truth of her failure. She hadn't just lost Sebastian to another woman, she had lost him to a family he had chosen to build with sincerity and real love. Defeated and humiliated, Vanessa left knowing she would never have the place in Sebastian's heart that she once believed was hers. Over time, Sebastian offered Clara a position at Cole Financial Group, a place where she could contribute and grow her career, knowing he would always support her every step of the way. Together, they built a life rooted in honesty, where trust and respect formed an unshakable foundation. To Lily, Sebastian was no longer just a presence in her life. He became the father figure she had always longed for. In the love and care he gave to Lily, Sebastian discovered the meaning he had been searching for. On a bright sunny day, as they played in the garden, Lily called him Dad for the first time. At that moment, Sebastian felt it was the greatest title he had ever received. Each passing day was a step toward a new life, a life where everyone had a chance to be happy, to feel whole and safe. Sebastian, Clara, and Lily had finally become a family that truly needed each other. A family where love and hope blossomed with each new morning, and so surrounded by the joy and warmth of a life filled with meaning and love. Sebastian, Clara, and Lily continued forward together, building a future filled with hope, where the past was nothing more than a distant memory, and the present was a promise they cherished every single day. Do you believe that everyone deserves a second chance, whether to make amends or to start over? Share your thoughts in the comments. Sebastian and Clara's story is not just about love. It's about trust, forgiveness, and the true value of a real home. Let's believe together in the power of kindness, new beginnings, and who knows, maybe you too can bring meaningful change to someone's life. See you in the next story. Thank you for supporting the channel. Please like, share, and subscribe to receive the latest updates. The stories are collected from various sources and do not represent any individual or organization. They are shared with the intention of spreading human values in life and have been rewritten with the support of AI. If there are any mistakes, kindly overlook them with understanding. Wishing you all the best in life.